Thieves cutting catalytic converters from cars at alarming rates.
I was hoping that RTD would take some action. It's just not a safe place to park your vehicle.
Denver 7 Investigates uncovered a parking garage where bad guys are swarming.
Will you ever park in here again?
I'll tell everybody I know not to park in here.
Now, one company is finding a solution while a public agency does little to deter the problem.
If a business has a history of thefts, in 2022, is it acceptable now to do nothing?
I think one theft is unacceptable to do nothing, and let alone a history.
I think it's outrageous they don't do something to take care of it.
Tonight, questions surrounding a lack of accountability and lack of action.
Here's Chief Investigative Reporter Tony Kovaleski.
There's a lot of bad stuff going on in here.
It might look like nothing more than a parking garage.
It's just irritating. It pisses me off.
It might look like nothing more than concrete and parked cars.
It's negligent. You've elevated it. They know what's going on.
But in reality, this RTD parking garage remains a playground for criminals, thieves, and bad guys.
I don't know what it takes to make them take action.
Back in February, criminals stole Bill Enyart's catalytic converter from RTD's Table Mesa park and ride.
I very quickly learned that I wasn't the only one that had an issue here.
In fact, data uncovered by Denver 7 Investigates showed that in the 12 months prior to May of this year, thieves grabbed 88 catalytic converters from this one parking garage. Our investigation showed it takes bad guys less than 15 seconds to cut out a catalytic converter. Back in March, we shared our findings with RTD's top cop. Did you know there were nearly 100 catalytic converter thefts at that location?
Those numbers I did not know, but now that we know that certain areas are exhibiting, more of those type of criminal incidents, now we know to redeploy our resources.
Our report questioned why RTD had no signs warning drivers of the dangers and no cameras monitoring the cars. Describe that moment when you realized you had a problem.
The moment we realized we had a problem with catalytic converters in the parking lot was we had a day where multiple got stolen.
He's the general manager of this Amazon distribution center in Thornton. It's just 16 miles from that RTD parking garage in Boulder.
Doing all right?
Jonathan Bridgers discovered he also had a problem. He responded with big, bold signs warning bad guys. He added multiple visible security cameras, and he directed his security team to watch closely for suspicious activity. What kind of impact have your security changes had on catalytic converter thefts here?
Since putting them in place, we have not had a single catalytic converter been stolen from our parking lot.
Compare those results to what we have learned back in Boulder. Police records show in the 4 months since our report first aired in April, 13 catalytic converter thefts, 13 new victims.
It was when I stepped on the accelerator that I realized something was horribly wrong.
Diane Winters is one of the 13 new victims.
It's surprising that something hasn't been done before now.
It's been more than 4 months since our story. Any cameras? Any signs?
Nothing on the entrance that I saw. No cameras that I can see. Nothing in place. There's nothing.
So we wanted to ask RTD why there are no signs alerting drivers about the growing number of thefts. Why 4 months after our investigation exposed the problem, RTD has not installed a single camera. What's that say?
It says people are negligent. They're just not doing their job.
RTD's leadership declined to answer our questions on camera, electing only to issue this statement that included, RTD police continue to collaborate. It talks about meetings with law enforcement and realigning its security personnel. But the statement includes no plans to add security cameras, and it confirmed no new signs are currently in place. What'd that statement say to you?
Smoke and mirrors. Doesn't say much of anything. They're having a bunch of meetings. I didn't hear really any hard facts about what they're actually implementing to stop the thefts and stop the crime right here.
In the end, we are left with a stark contrast. Amazon, a public company, identified it had a problem, quickly responded with signs, cameras, and stepped up security. RTD, a public agency funded by your tax dollars, has scheduled meetings and considered possible changes, while the bad guys remain in the business of committing crimes. We will continue to monitor any changes. I'm Chief Investigative Reporter Tony Kowaleski.
So frustrating. Thank you, Tony. And Denver 7 Investigates has reported extensively on catalytic converter thefts in the metro. You can follow those in-depth investigations over on thedenverchannel.com.
New at 10 o'clock, the Washington Post is reporting that the FBI was looking for classified documents related to nuclear weapons when it searched Trump's Mar-a-Lago home on Monday. And a separate report late tonight from the New York Times says the search was to account for documents related to some of the most highly classified programs run by the United States. The Post reports that experts in classified information were concerned these highly sensitive documents were not well secured. They fear they could potentially fall into the wrong hands, providing foreign intelligence agencies with a roadmap to build ways to counter those systems. The reporting does not indicate whether the FBI was able to successfully retrieve those classified documents in their search of the Palm Beach resort. Attorney General Merrick Garland said Thursday that he personally approved the decision to seek a warrant for the search of Trump's Florida home. The Justice Department has filed a request now to have that search warrant unsealed. Trump now has 15 hours to notify the DOJ whether he approves of unsealing the warrant. Now, the deadline, 3 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. Now, Trump has a copy of the warrant and has been free to release it, but has declined to do so.
We're learning more tonight about the suspect killed while trying to break into the FBI's Cincinnati headquarters earlier today. Police say 42-year-old Ricky Schiffer fled the scene after failing to break into the facility. He led police on a chase, eventually leading to an hours-long standoff with officers. Schiffer then raised his gun and shot at police. A shootout began and he was killed. Investigators are looking into a motive, but it's being reported that he may have been connected to far-right extremist groups, including the Proud Boys.
A father whose 17-year-old son was shot and killed last year has now filed a lawsuit against the alleged killer, who is a former Greenwood police officer.
It happened after a confrontation about reckless driving in an Aurora neighborhood. Denver 7's Colette Bordelon learned the teen's family wants to make sure this case isn't forgotten.
I have a ring here. It's got his fingerprint on it.
Since November of last year, Todd Blitstein has been living a reality he doesn't recognize.
You know, it's just a constant reminder.
A reminder of what happened to his son Payton in their Aurora neighborhood.
I don't want this case to fall by the wayside.
A doorbell camera captured what police say was the deadly end of an argument over careless driving, where Payton died after being shot several times. And the man police say shot him, Adam Holen, was drunk at the time of the shooting. Holen, who's a former Greenwood Village police officer, is facing several charges, including second-degree murder.
I want him to be held accountable.
And now Payton's father has filed a wrongful death civil lawsuit as well. His lawyer, Sean Simonson, says there's no amount of money that can bring back a life, but he is looking to compensate the family on both financial and emotional fronts.
This is a lawsuit that, in my view, is worth north of $5 million, $10 million.
Police say Payton, who was 17, fired a gun that night too.
I see this more like Payton and his friends being backed up into a corner.
The gun found at the scene appeared to be made from different parts and had no serial markings on the slide.
Illegal possession of a weapon is not a big issue in my mind. It's more a reflection of the society that we live in.
We tried to talk with Holen's attorneys for the criminal case, but they didn't have time for an interview tonight. While this father navigates life without his son.
You see these parents that go through this, and you're like, man, I couldn't imagine that. And then next thing you know, you're turning around and you're in the middle of it.
Saying his fight is far from over.
I want his name out there in a positive light.
Colette Bordelon, Denver 7.
Holen will appear in court for his criminal case later this month. Well, the Broncos hosted the Cowboys today for a joint practice, but the blows went beyond just helmet to helmet.
Denver 7's Lionel Bienvenu is live in the studio tonight with the scrimmage scuffle tonight.
Yeah, guys, after 14 days of beating each other up, the Broncos finally got to hit somebody else today. The Dallas Cowboys. Look, you see this in training camps all the time. When two teams practice against each other, there's always a scuffle or two. But in this case, there were about, 5 or 6. And thanks to the Cowboys' live stream of practice, you get to see the video. Broncos defense, Cowboys offense spent a lot of time yelling at each other with some pushing, shoving, and a few punches sprinkled in. Here's sports anchor Nick Rothschild with a day of altercation and domination by the Broncos' D.
They were mad they was getting, in a proper way to say it, they're getting their tails handed to them.
Here's some pushing and shoving. Here we go, baby. That's it.
No minced words by DJ Jones. Denver's defense overwhelmed Dallas, and the Cowboys responded in kind. Brouhahas broke out several times throughout practice, led mostly by Denver's D-line, but this is the NFL. You have to defend your turf.
It was fun. Another day on the playground. Guys kind of come in your backyard and, you know, as a kid, try to take your ball and lead with it or something like that.
We already talked about it going into practice. You know, this is where blood, sweat, and tears come out. I mean, we work here in the off season. You know, we've been working in training camp. We're not going to just let nobody come in here and funk us.
This is our sanctuary right here. The stadium is one thing, but this is like where we get better. This is how we put the time in. We watch film in this building, so we just got to protect it at all times.
Malik Reed and Draymond Jones sparked skirmishes with their proximity to quarterback Dak Prescott. And Bradley Chubb flattened Ezekiel Elliott.
Back to Zeke. Oh, and he took a hit from Bradley Chubb.
Accidentally, but that didn't stop the celebration.
Oh, just said, hey, you ain't got to do that. I said, my bad, bro. Got to keep him up, you know what I'm saying? But the aggression, all that flair when you're going against somebody that's not your teammate, but at the end of the day, it's all love.
Outside of all the pushing and shoving, this was a great day against a good offense for a Denver defense showing glimpses of future dominance.
When you're in the heat of the battle, we had 2-minute situations, you still got that dog in you, whether you're tired or not. So, yeah, I'm very proud of every single individual on this team.
At UCL Training Center, I'm Nick Rothschild.
All right, Nick. Now, coming up later in sports, we'll check in with Broncos insider Troy Rank as Russell Wilson in the offense also had a good day against the Cowboys defense.
One Colorado school saying no to smartphones in class. Some parents say they're out of touch.
How do I know I'm going to be able to tell her I love her if there is a mass shooting?
Plus, record-breaking heat for the Front Range.
It'll be another hot and dry day tomorrow, but a big change is coming up in the 7-day.